Hey guys, and welcome back to another Unreal Engine 4 and 5 tutorial. So in today's video, what we're going to be going over is a very famous mechanic in Mario where you can jump into a pipe and you'll go down, you'll enter it, and it will take you to a different part of the level or a different level. It will basically just transport or teleport you. So that is what we're going to be going over today. I imagine we've all played or at least seen Mario, but I'm still going to hit play and show you what we're going to make today anyway. So if I had to jump onto this pipe and then go down, we're going to have the sound effect, we're going to go down, and then we're going to go to a different pipe there. And if I had to go to a different one, what we should see is we get the same thing, but it's going to go to a different pipe, so we can have different pipes connected to each other and have this working how we want. Now you'll notice with this first pipe over here, my character kind of glitched out of it a little bit, depending on which angle you come in from, but obviously that's just because of the size of my character, the size of the pipe. You can change it all and change it to be more centered as well if you did want that. But this is what we're going to be going over and creating today, so without further ado, let me delete this code and I'll show you how I've done it. So before I get into the rest of the video, I just want to say we've hit a goal to try and hit 50,000 subscribers before the end of the year. So if you're not subscribed and you do enjoy this content, please do consider subscribing, as it really does help me and the channel out a lot. So again, if you're not subscribed and you are enjoying what you see, please consider liking and subscribing. But let's get on with the video. So the first thing we want to do is we want to obviously create our blueprint. So we're going to hit Control Space to open our content browser. Let me actually just delete this one, sorry. And then we'll right click, go to Blueprint Class, create an actor, and I'm going to name this one Pipe BP, opening it up straight away. First thing I'm going to do in here is add in my pipe static mesh, which I have here. Let me just name it Pipe, and I'll change this to the correct pipe static mesh I have, like so. Now you notice the mesh I'm using is off center a bit, so what I'm going to do is just paste in a location I've already got to center it perfectly, like so. You might not need to do that depending on the mesh you're doing, but just make sure you have it positioned in the place you want in your blueprint. What we want to do next is we want to add in a plane. Now again, you might not need to do this, and I'll explain why I'm doing this in a moment. I'm doing this because the collision of this asset means the player can actually fall into this pipe here. I don't want them to be able to fall in when they stand on it, I want them to just stand on the surface. So what I'm going to do is just increase this slightly to cover the area like so, and then I'm just going to set this to be not visible, so untick visible there. So the player can't see it, it just means they're going to be standing on it, so they're not going to fall into the pipe. We'll compile and save that. Again, you might not need to do that, so I recommend testing it first, so just jump on top of the pipe and see if the player falls in. If they do this. If they don't, you don't need to bother. Then we're going to make sure we have the pipe and the plane selected like so. We're going to scroll down until we find collision, and we're going to change the collision presets from block or dynamic to custom. Then all we're going to change is the collision responses. Under trace responses, we're going to change camera to be overlap. Now the reason we're doing that is so that the player's camera doesn't go inside of the pipe with the player, it is going to stay on the outside. So the camera isn't going to collide with this pipe. That just makes it look a lot nicer. And we're going to compile and save that again like so. Next, we want to add in our box collision, so where the player needs to be in order to actually enter the pipe. So we're going to add another component here, searching for box collision like so, and we're going to put that on top of the pipe here. What I might do is I scaled it up last time, but I might keep it more centered like this, so the player has to be within this area of the pipe here, where they can actually go down in order for them to enter it. And so as I mentioned earlier in the beginning of the video, it kind of clipped through a bit. That's because the player could enter the pipe while being here. So I'll make it more centered like this. It will be a little bit better in my personal opinion. So that's what I'm going to go with. So just put the box collision where you want the player to be in order to enter the pipe. And again, for me, that is going to be good there. They need to be inside of this box collision area to enter the pipe. And the final things we need to add are some references for the top and bottom of the pipe. So how I'm going to be doing this is using arrows. So I'll add component arrow like so, naming this pipe top, and I'll move that to be the top of the pipe like so. What I can do is this is actually hidden for some reason. What I'm going to do is just rotate it up so I can see it a bit easier, and then move this to where I want. So I think there is going to be pretty good for me. Then I'm going to Control-C, Control-V to duplicate this, renaming it to pipe bottom, and then move this to the bottom of the pipe. And this one I'm going to rotate again, just so I can see it a little bit better, and I'll rotate it there so I can see where it is, like so. And I'm going to move it to about there. I don't want it too far down, so what I mean by pipe bottom is where the player is going to go. So if it's all the way down here, that means the player will go all the way down. If you want that, then go for that. But I want it to be a little bit further up here, like so. And for you, this might just need some trial and error to see which values you like, and which is why I'm doing arrows, so I can very easily move them. So when I move this, that's also moving where the player will go, so it just makes it nice and easy to continue customizing further on in the future. So we'll compile and save that, and that is the start of our pipe blueprint set up. We've got everything in here we need, so we've got the static mesh, we've got the collision, we've got where they can enter, and we've got references for the top and the bottom, i.e. where the player is going to go from and go to. So now we need to actually start setting up some of the mechanic for entering the pipe. So let's go over to the event graph to start doing that, and we can delete these 3 nodes as we don't need them. What we're going to do is we need a button to actually enter the pipe. So for me, I'm going to be using the S keyboard event. You can use the S key, the E key, the down arrow, whatever it is you want, just use that keyboard event. And you can create an action mapping as well if you wanted to, but I'm not going to bother. So I'm just going to right click and search for S keyboard event like so, getting that here like this. Then I'm going to right click on my box collision and add event and add on component begin overlap, right click it again, add event, add on component end overlap. So this is just seeing when I enter and exit the box collision we just set up, so I know when I can or can't enter the pipe. Then I'm going to right click in the middle of these and get player controller, and then I'm going to right click again and get enable input, so just search enable input, there's no get, and that is going to connect into the begin overlap, target being self, player controller being get player controller. Then I'm going to get disable input, connecting into the end overlap, target being self, player controller being get player controller. So this means when we're in the area to enter the pipe, we can interact with the pipe, and when we're not in the area to enter the pipe, we can't interact with it. Basically meaning if we press S while we're out of the area, nothing's going to happen. And also one more thing we want to do on begin overlap is right click other actor, promote it to a variable, and name this character reference 1. And then we'll just connect this in here so it's going to be setting like so. After this, once we've managed to enable and disable the inputs, we're going to drag out of the pressed of our S key, or whatever key it is for you to enter the pipe, and we're going to search for a gate, with the keyboard event going into enter, begin overlap going into open, and end overlap going into close. And this basically means, again, once we're in the box collision, we can enter the gate. When we're not in the box collision, we can't enter the gate. So if it's open, we can enter. If it's closed, we press S, nothing will happen. Now this isn't too necessary because we're enabling and disabling the input here anyway, but in my opinion it's always good to have it anyway just in case something goes wrong down the line and enable input is still on when you're not in the box collision. But again, my personal opinion, so that's why I've got it. After exit of the gate, we're going to cast to character. Now this isn't the name of your character, this is simply just cast to character. And the object is going to be our character reference 1. And this means it will go to our character no matter which character blueprint we're using. So if you've got 5 different characters, this will always work perfectly for whichever one you want. And then as character, we're going to promote to variable and name this one character reference 2. So this gives us a more specific character reference. This first one is for the actor, which is overlapping the box collision. This second one is an actual character which we want. So I hope that makes sense. And the reason why we need the actual character is because if we drag out this now, we can disable movement out of the character movement there, like so. And we'll connect that into the set like this as well. Then after this, what we're going to do is play sound 2D. So what we've done here is we've just made the player stop moving because they are now entering the pipe. We don't want them to be able to move backwards and forwards as well. And we're also playing the sound effect, which for me is going to be the iconic Mario enter pipe sound effect, which obviously you can't use in your actual game because it's obviously going to be copyrighted, but it's fine for me to use here because I'm not going to be selling this or anything along those lines. So we'll compile and save that. What we're going to do next is actually play the animation for entering the pipe. So it's a very simple animation, it's simply just the character going down into the pipe. So we can do that using a timeline. So we're going to drag out of play sound 2D and add timeline like so, and I'm going to name this one enter pipe. Then I'm going to double click this to open it up, and the length I'm using is just to match my sound effect. So my sound is 1.2 seconds long, so that's what I'm going to be doing for my length. You can set this to however long you like, and you might want to make it match your sound effect as well. Then we're going to add a track, adding a float track, naming this whatever you want. I'm going to name it pipe track, like so. Then I'm going to right click on it, add key to curve float with a time of 0 and a value of 0. Right click, add key to curve float with a time of your maximum length, which for me is 1.2, and a value of 1. So we're going from the start to the end of the timeline, perfectly like so, for the value of 0 to 1 over the space of 1.2 seconds. And we'll close that timeline going back to the event graph here, and you'll notice we now have this float track as an output variable of this timeline. Out of update of the timeline, we want to set actor location. Now the actor we want to be moving is obviously our player. So we're going to get our character reference 1, connecting that into target there. But what we also want to do is get the actor location of our player. We're going to right click the return value, split the structure pin, and we're going to do the same of the set actor location. So right click new location, split structure pin, and we're going to connect in X and Y between these two here. That is because we only want to be moving the player up and down, i.e. on the Z, but we want to keep their left and right, forward and backwards, i.e. X and Y values the same. So we're going to be setting it to what it currently is, and because obviously their movement is disabled, they're not going to be able to move and change that about. So what do we want the new location Z to be? Well, we can just connect the pipe track in there, but that's not what we want because that's just going between 0 and 1. What we want to do is actually right click and get a lerp under float here, with the return value being new location Z and the alpha being the pipe track. So we're using the alpha of the timeline to go between the values of A and B smoothly, which will be then inputted into the set actor location. So the values of A and B is A is going to be the top, B is going to be the bottom. So we created our references earlier for these locations, so let's use those now. So we'll drag in pipe top and get the world location of this, right clicking the return value, splitting the structure pin, connecting Z into A like so. And we'll do the exact same for pipe bottom, drag it in, and we can just duplicate the get world location, connecting that in there like so. And then again, Z going into B this time. So now it's going to go between the values of A and B, which is our pipe top and pipe bottom on the Z value, so the heights of these. So this now is actually going to enter our pipe. We can compile and save this, and we can actually close it and test this out here. So let's get our pipe BP, I'm going to lower it a little bit, hit play, and we should see that we can now enter our pipe perfectly like so. Again, you'll notice the player is just now at the bottom, so the camera's gone in here because I'm in the floor, but it's now entered the pipe. So let's finish off this code now, because we obviously enter it, but we want to exit out of a different pipe and actually change locations. So to do that, we need to come off of finished of this timeline. So to do that is going to be off of finished of the timeline. But what I'm going to do first is right click, get player camera manager, and out of this I'm going to start camera fade. Because in Mario and in how I want to do it, the camera does fade to black while it's changing locations. So this start camera fade will go into finished of the timeline. Now what we want to do is we want to go from alpha 0, i.e. fully transparent, to alpha 1, i.e. fully on the color we have chosen, and the color we've chosen is black. The duration I'm going to set to 1, so it's going to take 1 second to go from transparent to black. You can do audio as well if you wanted. I'm not going to bother, but that might be good for you if you maybe have music in the background that you also want to fade. Then I'm going to hold down D, left click to get a delay, setting this to my duration of my camera fade, which for me was 1 second. Then after this, we can actually teleport the player. So what I'm going to do is get all actors of class, with my actor class being my pipe BP, which we're currently in, because we want to obviously go to another pipe. The out actor is going to be a for each loop with break, connecting the execution into the get all actors of class like so. I will compile and save this. One thing we need to do before moving on is create a variable, naming this pipe ID. And we're going to set this to be an integer. So we'll compile and save that again, and we can change the default value, but I'm going to leave it as 0. This pipe ID is basically going to allow us to just connect different pipes. So we have 2 pipes in the level. If we give them the same ID, they're going to be connected, meaning we will transport from one to another. Which also just reminds me, if we go back to our timeline, this wants to go into play from start, not play. Because play from start means it's going to reset to the beginning of the timeline every time we go into it, which is obviously what we want. If we just go from play, it's not going to do that. It's going to go from where it currently is, which obviously isn't how we want it to work. So make sure to go into play from start. And let's go back to this for each loop with break and continue what we were doing. We're going to come out of the array element and we're going to get pipe ID, which we just created here. Out of this, we're going to get an equal equal, and we want to just make sure that this is equal to the pipe ID of the current blueprint. So we can drag in pipe ID where we are into the equal equal. And again, this is to make sure that they are matching. These are two connected pipes. For example, if the pipe we're checking has an ID of 2 and the pipe we're in has an ID of 3, it's not going to work as they're not connected. It'll only work if they have the same value. However, obviously, this is going to share the same value as itself. So if this is checking itself, it will obviously be correct. So we want to make sure it doesn't try and connect with itself, because that means it will just teleport the player back to where they already are. So out of this equal equal, we're going to get an AND. So this and something else has to be true. And the other value is going to be, again, if it's not equal to itself. So we'll drag out of array element once again, getting a not equal to, which is an exclamation mark equal. And that will go into the AND. And the bottom value is just simply going to be get a reference to self. So if the current pipe it's checking isn't the same one as itself, and it has the same ID as the current one we're checking, then we're going to do what we want to do. And to make sure that this is true or false, we're going to hold down B and left click to get a branch, with that AND being the condition, and the branch going to loop body of the for each loop, like so. False, we're not going to do anything because it's not the right pipe, so we don't want to do anything with it. True, we're going to do our code. So we're going to hold down S, left click to get a sequence, with then 0 going to break of the for each loop with break, just so we can then stop checking these pipes as we've got the one we want to go to. We'll compile and save that, and also I'm just double clicking the execution node here to get those root nodes just to keep it nice and organized. So now we've got the correct pipe, we want to exit it. So how do we do that? Well, it's very, very simple. What we want to do first is get character reference 1 and set actor location. So we want to first teleport the player to this new pipe. So we'll do that like so. So the new location just wants to be pipe bottom, as we're obviously then in the pipe. So let me come out of array element of the for each loop once again and get pipe bottom. So this is going to get the bottom of the pipe of the new one we want to be going to. Out of this, we're going to get world location, connecting that into the new location of the set actor location perfectly like so. So now the player is in the new pipe which we want to go to. So obviously we've made sure that the camera has faded to black. What we want to do now is make sure it goes back from black. So what we can do is go back here and select Get Player Camera Manager and Start Camera Fade. Control C to select it. Come back over here and hit Control V to paste it. And then we just want to inverse these values once we've connected it in, obviously. So we're going from an alpha of 1 to an alpha of 0 with a duration of 1 second. So we're going to black, and now we're going from black. So we're basically reversing the camera fade. After this, we want to play our sound again. So we're going to play sound 2D. Now you don't have to do this if you don't want, and you can choose a different sound. But for me, I am doing it, and I am using the same sound effect. So enter pipe like so. We'll compile and save that. And now all we need to do is basically just copy the code from earlier. So we're going to come back to our timeline and select the timeline and everything coming out of it, which I have on screen here. So it's easier to just show you on video than say all the different nodes. We're going to hit Control C, come back all the way over here and hit Control V. And we're going to connect this in. So now instead of going from play from start, we're going to go into reverse from end. Then the pipe top and pipe bottom we're going to delete as we want to change these references. So we're going to come out of the array element and get pipe top and get pipe bottom. So we're going to connect them into the same place. We're just changing the references to be the correct pipe. So there's pipe top and then get pipe bottom. Again, connecting it to the same place we had pipe bottom before, but this is for the new pipe instead of the old pipe. Then the only other thing we change now is instead of start camera fade on finished, we're just going to make sure we re-enable the player's movement so they can walk again. So to do that, we're going to get character reference 2, get the character movement, which should be right at the bottom. There we go. And then out of this, we're going to set movement mode, making sure we set the new movement mode to walking. So the player can walk once again, and again, connect that into finished of the timeline. Now you notice this timeline is just called timeline 0. You can rename it if you want, so let's say exit pipe, but that's not necessary. It just helps you know what it's doing. So once we compile and save that, this should now be the code fully done and working for us. So we can close it and let's hit play to test this out. Well, firstly, we need another pipe to go to. So let's duplicate this one. They both have an ID of 0, although one thing we need to do actually is open this back up, select our pipe ID, and we want to make sure this is instance editable, so we can change this for every instance of the pipe in our level. Now we can see the pipe ID here, and they both have a value of 0. Then let's just move this to a different location. I'm just going to put them in the same places I had them at the beginning of the video, like so. And I'm going to get 2 different sets in here, again, just to show it working, as we want here, like this. So let's hit play to test this out. I'll go onto this pipe, and I'll press S to go through it. It's going to enter, play the animation and the sound effect, fade out, and then it's going to go up here, although I didn't change the IDs of these, so they stayed the same. So these last 2 are placed in here. I want the pipe ID to be 1 instead of 0. So sorry, that's my bad. I forgot to change the ID. So let's test this out once again. We'll go down, and then we'll go up into this one here instead. And if I were to go over to this one, go down, we're going to go directly up above us, like we have here, working perfectly for us. So I think that'll be it for this video, as we've done everything we wanted to do. What we've done is we've set up a Mario pipe system in which we can transport through all of these different pipes that we have set up here, and we can connect them between the 2, and it will work the same it does in Mario. So we go onto it, we press down, it's going to go down into it with the sound effect, and then come out of another one with the sound effect again, as you can see perfectly here. So thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found it helpful. And if you did, make sure to like and subscribe down below. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.